BlogTalk Radio.
Now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this conversation about your Kundalini awakening experiences. My name is Chrism, and I'm joined today by the two dinosaur dogs, Tika and Inara. Hopefully, they'll be a little quieter today than it seems they have been. And so without any further ado, we'll go ahead and jump right into this program. I may have to take a break and oh, good. No, maybe not. So I just wrote something on our one of our groups, Kundalini Awakening ! In order to invite or in order to create radical change in your life, you need to be able to invite and embrace radical actions to support that change. Now, this is true. This is a truth. And this goes across the board with the Kundalini. Kundalini itself is an amazing, radical system change for an individual. And yet, as it percolates through all the five body systems of the human being, certain levels of change will be incurred upon the individual. What had once been a positive job or a positive relationship or a positive connection with something or someone may terminate, may become terminated because of the Kundalini. Okay, and because that it's changing the dynamic, the energetic dynamic within your system, and that change no longer supports the qualities that relationship has served to give up to this point. And I'm just going to have to put these dinosaur dogs in the bag here. Just a second. Come here, Nara. Just a second. Let's go. Come on. Sorry about that. Leaving the studio, coming back into the studio chair here. So as I was saying, as the Kundalini percolates, it's changed throughout the many different relationships we have in our lives. Some of those relationships are going to go, and some of those that you would never have thought to leave will actually leave, and it can leave you spinning. You may have been married just like a year, and all of a sudden that spouse is filing for divorce for no discernible reason. Whatever platitude or excuse they may give, it's not going to match the magnitude of what the termination of that relationship will be for you. And it may throw your entire life into a downward spiral where you're just kind of losing things right and left. It's very important to understand that the Kundalini grace is causing this, and the Kundalini grace is rearranging the priorities and the energetic relationships, and all relationships have an energetic quality. And so she's rearranging these energetic relationships and these energetic qualities within your life to begin to support the new life that is being developed. But it's not easy, as you're inside of this internal disarray, to find the reference points for what she's changing your life into. And before and speaking of change, before I go even further with this, I would like to change the cadence at this point and invite my co-host. The reason this show exists, because of her benevolence and her great love for humanity and all things Kundalini. This is Amelia Santara. and I'm bringing her into the program now. I'm bringing you in right now, Amelia, because I have a feeling that you have some fairly pertinent things to say, in this level. Hi.
Hi, Chrism. Hi, everybody. Do you want to check on the sound quality, Chrism? Sounds good here, but maybe in the chat room?
Well, let's ask Alana Seeker and Michelle Ranger if they would let us know through typing, we can hear you or not. It's good not to be talking to the air. So that's a good thing. And it looks like that's taken a while to get. It looks like Michelle's typing. And we'll see what she has to say about the sound. And she'll hear loud and clear. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And there's Alana Seeker coming in, too. And hopefully it's good. Okay, very good. Thank you both. Thank you. And thank you, Centaur, for suggesting it. So as our current life gets torn to shreds sometimes with regards to these relationships, you may find yourself looking to find the thin thread of why this is occurring and what's it. If you know the why of its occurrence, you can try to piece together the outcome of the occurrence as well, and where it's taking you and where it's leading you. And I've worked with a lot of Kundalini people and Kundalini couples in the past, and sometimes the current partner is just not going to be able to withstand a Kundalini equation within the relationship. And the Kundalini will, without further ado, terminate that relationship. Have you seen that happen, Amelia?
I have, Chrism. I've seen it happen to a couple of people who have Kundalini. Yeah, indeed.
And they'll sometimes they'll have an infant or two infants. Children will be involved in jobs and money and splitting up the house, and all of these things are involved, and yet the Kundalini will stand firm in this regard, and that couple is not to be continued. And the one who gets left is typically the one that it has the worst time. And as that one who gets left is in bewilderment about what just happened, and oh my God, I thought we were a partnership throughout the rest of our lives, through sickness and health, and good times and bad times, and now all of a sudden, they're going off to spend the rest of their life with someone else, or alone, or without me. This can be a real shock to the system. And it will invite a heartbreak. And that heartbreak will often invite more Kundalini into the system. Never downgrade the ability of the emotional body to facilitate a greater level of Kundalini entering into the system. Many people experience their awakening basically through the auspices of the emotional body. And so at once, almost, at the moment that the person who's being left understands that they are being left, and they're the ones with the Kundalini, immediately a level of Kundalini is being invited into their system. And this level of emotional turmoil will really set a person up to want to go into survival mode. You go into survival mode, and all of a sudden, the one half of the partnership is gone, and how are you going to eat if that person was the breadwinner? How are things going to be split up while the divorce is in process? Where is the money going? And, who's going to, feed the kids? And how is this going to work? And you immediately get put into a level of survival mode that, once again, the Kundalini will support. And you'll get to the point where where you'll be rock bottom in many different aspects, and in that rock bottomness, you will reach out to Kundalini and say, "My God, what is going on here? I need some help." And the help that you're going to invite is you're going to need radical help. And this radical help that you want to bring into your life needs to be sustained by the choices and decisions you make towards radical action. It's not just about praying into the cosmos, "Oh, most bountiful, great spirit, I am an abundant thinker, and this thinking of abundance, I want to bring into me exactly what I need at exactly the right time," and you're not going to lift a finger. You're not even going to lift a finger to make it happen. Well, I'm going to suggest you're going to have to lift a finger. These New Age ideologies that, well, if you just think in an abundant way, then abundance is going to flow towards you. What do you think of that, Amelia? Are you an abundance thinker?
I remember when The Secret came out. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
And I have quite a few friends who were very taken with that. It was difficult because that's how everybody was thinking at the time. Oh my God, and it was so ego-based. But anyway,
if you just think in an abundant way, then abundance is going to flow for you. Didn't you know?
Well, that's true. That's true. But I could talk a little bit about marriage because I'm married in a Kundalini context, and I suppose I'm not one of the ones. You can be married and stay married because that is how it is to be for you in your process too. But it doesn't mean that your marriage stays the same as it was. Like I was married 30 years before I had the awakening, the Kundalini awakened. So as you can imagine, in 30 years, we had gone through a huge amount of ups and downs and negotiation and, I suppose, reinventing our relationship. So we had been through a lot. So when the Kundalini came, I wouldn't have told John too much about it, to begin with. But one of the very first things, well, maybe 6 months down the road or so, the Kundalini had me go to Brazil. And I won't go into how that happened, but it was from the Kundalini. And I was to go to Brazil to meet with you, my teacher. I hadn't met with you before, and to meet other Kundalini people. And, this was my first time traveling away from my family for a long time. I think it was 3 weeks we went for back then. And as you can well imagine, my husband wasn't too thrilled about this at all. Yeah. And yet, somewhere within me, I knew that this had to be done and that it would be happening, that I would have to do this. And so, because I think we were married a long time and we've got good communication, we were able to work it out. I could imagine that being extremely difficult if you weren't married, very long, or John was able to support that. Now, it took him a little while. I was also, he knew that it had to be done, that the Kundalini was requiring for me to do that.
Well, also there's the understanding that if Mama ain't happy, nobody's happy.
Well, yeah, of course, there is that. There is, but if Daddy ain't happy, that has an effect on the family too. Yeah, it does. But so I mean that's another. And the Kundalini has, even after 30 years, the Kundalini brought huge change into our relationship as well.
And
the things that were happening.
It doesn't have to break up the marriage, is what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying. That
And
can also be the case.
That's a very pertinent point, I feel. It doesn't have to break it up at all. Matter of fact, I think the majority of the marriages within a Kundalini context stay together. If the people have the level of communication that you and your husband have, Santara, I think that if they're able to avoid the medical route, that there's going to be a good chance that the marriage will survive and people will begin to embrace the new changes that the Kunalini brings. Even, flying off to Brazil to meet people that you've never met before, which in and of itself is somewhat of a risk. I mean, you don't even know what they look like. I guess you know what they look like, but, they could be crazy people.
Yeah.
From a Yahoo group,
they were. They were all crazy people, including that teacher I had never met before.
Well, he would be there. He'd be the craziest one of them all, I would think.
Yeah, but I think within a relationship, when.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. And I was going to say, within the context of a relationship that's there before the Kundalini comes, it's respect for each other, and being able to listen. Respect, actually, if I had to choose one word, you don't have to be married 30 years, really. I think you can have it after a year or 3 years or 5, I think respect for each other, I think that's the crucial thing. And therefore, your experience and your process will be respected, and you'll be given the space. You actually referred to this. It was either on a teaching, or was it last week, or was it on the group? You were talking about, the partner needing to allow the other person the freedom and, the support to do that. Yeah.
Well, certainly that does need to occur. But what I'm getting from what you're saying is it's really tying in to the previous portion of the conversation today, where radical action is being brought into the equation. And I would say going off to Brazil to meet absolute strangers could be considered radical activity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're taking a chance and all of these things. And I remember the first time I went to South America, I felt that I was, definitely taking a chance, the military police and, all of these types of different things. And, and it proved out to be quite true in my case. I mean, I was almost shot by the military police at 10 p.m., a couple of hours after I arrived in Brazil. And then, then I made friends with the police, and then they took me all over the place and locked me in jail just for the fun of it, things of that nature. It was all good, in good fun, but it's definitely a different system down there. Radical action also means giving yourself to the Kundalini in a very, very radical way. If you find yourself in a position where Kundalini is taking you out of your familiar zones of understanding, of comprehension, of comfort, and sticking you into these refinement zones where, you find yourself walking on shards of glass, it seems, you really want to invite a greater, more radical level of interaction with the Kundalini from yourself to itself. And this part of the program, and I want you to listen closely to this, Santara, because I know you have been there and you've done some of these things that I'm talking about today. One of the things is,
and just to say, and then that in a relationship, and what happened to me is that the Kundalini actually takes preference over a relationship. It becomes the first thing, the most important thing.
Right.
I know that sounds a bit crazy and a bit radical, but that's a fact. And then it depends on the response to that, I feel. Anyway, enough said.
Well, absolutely, absolutely, and because it's happening within you. I mean, it's closer to you than any person or thing can be. It's inside your spine. It's inside your heart. It's inside your brain, 24/7. No partner can do that. No corporeal partner can do that. And so as the Kundalini comes in and begins to rearrange your entire life, radical change is being, would be called for by you to find the stamina, to find the strength, to find the organization, to find the understanding that would allow you to continue forward within this without going into fear and without going into panic and without resorting to things along the lines of The Secret. Like, well, if I just think in an abundant way, then abundant things will happen, and you're just setting yourself up to be run over by a train. You've got to invite the actions that support the thought. Okay? And then you've got to act on those actions. When we're talking about the Kundalini in this context, giving yourself in radical ways. Now, what does that mean? What's the most radical way a person can give themselves? What's the most radical way you can give yourself, Santara?
Well, the most radical way, I mean, there's probably lots of examples. I don't know. I mean, the most radical way for me is to put myself completely to the side, really, regardless of what, put myself to the side and just obey, really. That's radical, even.
That's pretty
obey
radical.
the Kundalini.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And you think of that word obey and what it comes from. It comes from the root word obedience, and you give yourself into complete and total radical obedience to the Kundalini, and then the Kundalini directs you in specific ways to engage that radical obedience in your environment, within yourself, towards the Kundalini, towards scenarios or equations that the Kundalini brings to you, and you surrender yourself to these levels of radical activity, and this is what the Kundalini will bring upon a person as she begins to redevelop the priorities and the landscape of a person's life. Radical change invites radical action. And it's the action on the part of the individual that needs to really come to the fore. You have got to be willing to go over the taboos. Most of society is really based on the egocentric search and attainment of comfort. Whether it's the challenge, the challenge of success, and and all these, the financial success, the emotional success, the material success, the spiritual success. Most of our Western society, I should say at least, seems to be directed towards levels of attainment of the wants and the desires of an ego. Not so much within the Kundalini. And within the Kundalini, the ego is definitely maybe a 6th or 7th seat when it comes to a level of priority. And so when you give yourself into radical action with regards to Kundalini, it's very, very important for a person to understand that you're not always going to like it. It's not always going to feel good. And you want to save yourself from going into depression because of your addiction, perhaps, to the way of, the secret way of thinking, or having expectation based upon the way society, is running, with you in it. You're going to have to step over those taboos, and that won't always feel good. You're going to have to challenge your fears and the projections that those fears develop within you. what is right, what is wrong takes on a very different understanding within Kundalini. It used to be right. Well, you see a spider walking across the road. Well, you step on that spider because it might be poisonous. Or you take out that can of pesticide and you spray the heck out of that wasp or that bee or whatever it may be that society thinks is bad and therefore it's going to kill it. Well, with the Kundalini, that won't be the case. You won't even have a can of pesticide. That wasp may land on your finger and hang out there for a while, and you will feel blessed because of that. And they do that, by the way. That happens to me. You've got to be willing to challenge the tenets and taboos of the society that you're in. Doesn't matter whether it's Western society or Eastern society, Northern society, Southern society, secret society, or whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you challenge the human-developed taboos, rules, and fear-evoking mannerisms that the people are talking about. And I have a question here on the chat room from 69175. Hello, 69175. It says, Chrism, how does one know what the Kundalini is asking for? I mean, when you say obey what? My own process does not include a separate identifiable voice. I can choose to ignore or obey. Same for surrender. Surrender to what? You surrender to the Kundalini force as it presents itself within your system. It will. I'm really happy to read that it's not coming to you as an identifiable voice. I think that's very important. Kundalini typically will not come as an identifiable voice using identifiable words in English or Swahili or Russian or whatever. That tells me that what you're having is really a good, clear communication from the Kundalini. It will come to you as a compelling, and you will obey that compelling. So when I say it will come to you as a compelling, as we discussed last week, it will come to you as a compelling to eat just vegetables. You won't even be able to look at a piece of meat. You won't even want to smell it. You won't want to see it. You won't want to be around the vibration of compact proteins. You will want to be around the vibrations of fruits and vegetables and perhaps mushrooms, other fungi, nuts, and things of that nature. This is what you'll be allowed to be around. And this is what you'll obey that compelling. And when let's just imagine 69175. Let's just imagine, my friend, that you're a dyed-in-the-wool carnivore. You only eat meat. You typically don't even touch the green leafy veggies. And yet the Kundalini is compelling you to do this. It's that compelling that you obey, not the familiar activity of the ego. This is what I'm talking about when I say obey. You obey it's almost like a telepathic attitude wave that comes over you. I was going to say thought wave, but it's kind of not like that either. You feel compelled towards a certain avenue of expression, and that is the obedience. Okay, and it'll also have reverberation within the physical body. You may feel bliss when you do the obedience, when you obey the compelling to eat the vegetables. You feel a level of bliss come upon you. You'll feel like your eyes are starting to water, and it's almost like you're going to break out in tears, except it feels really good. So you want to cry and you want to laugh at the same time, and yet it's verging towards more of a joy that comes upon you. And this is one of the communication tools that the Kundalini will tell you that she is really supportive of what you're doing and how you're doing. Conversely, if you give the middle finger to the veggies and you're heading straight on over to the meat aisle there, and all of a sudden you feel a stabbing in your heart. You feel this great level of sadness or a great level of shocking heartbreak, as if you had been, your eldest child had left you or died or something. I mean, it can be very, very, very it can be very loud and very, very strong when she disagrees with you going against her, the Sacred Mother. Conversely, you know that you're making a mistake when you feel that. And sometimes she'll also couple up those compellings with waking visions. So when I was standing in the cashier line in a casino where I had won, about $1,000, and I figured I was going home, well, as I was standing in the line, I was told I wasn't going home. I was not done yet. She manifested a vision of the exact, what do they call those machines? A gambling machine, I guess, is what you call it. With the arm on it. You pull the arm and the numbers or whatever they are come up. She showed me the exact machine that she wanted me to play, and I thank you. It's a slot machine. Thank you, Alanis. That's very nice of you. Yeah, she showed me the exact slot machine that she wanted me to play, and she showed it to me in living color, superimposed as if it was a hologram right in front of my face. I knew that it was a Crystal Sevens machine. I knew what it looked like. I knew what color it was. I knew how big it was. I just didn't know where it was in the casino. So I wandered around for a while looking for this machine, and I finally found this machine, and boom, she had me put $60 in, and of course, I won a big jackpot off of that machine. So waking visions can also be given to an individual in tandem to the desired behavior that the Kundalini wants you to appreciate, and this is a form of obedience. This is how you obey your process. And you say 69-175, you say, my own process does not include a separate identifiable voice. Well, I don't want you to expect that. The fact that it doesn't means that we're talking about the real deal here. If you did have an identifiable voice, the chances are that it would be an entity posing as your Kundalini. And if it said, hey, well, 69-175, I think you ought to, go over there to that bar and just have a few shots and just relax a little bit. Give yourself a little vacation, little chemical vacation, little alcohol. Never heard a thing. Go look at what the French say about that. They drink it every day. And so, it would be compelling you to go into a bar and to relax, in that way. So I'm happy that you don't have that identifiable voice, but I want you to listen with your heart. Listen with your heart. She communicates really a lot through the fourth chakra and the fifth chakra. Listen to the heart and listen to your intuition. Trust what your equation is beginning to show you, perhaps as a waking vision, perhaps as a strong intuition communication for you. And, look at these areas. This is what you obey. This is where your obedience is directed towards. And it is because, here, 69175 continues, they say, thank you. I see. For a while, I had those kinds of urges. I had to go outside barefoot and stand in the grass even though it was freezing. It was a compulsion. And they say, I eat a little meat now. I eat a little meat now, and urges come and go. And those urges that come and go are the ones you want to pay attention to. That is her speaking to you. And I'm sorry if people heard my feet. clicking. I apologize. I know I have that I like to move my feet. So, Tara, what do you think? Do you have something to add to that?
Well, I can relate to those kinds of urges because for sure I would get things like that as well. And while, there isn't a separate identifiable voice, I mean, the Kundalini is clear. The voice that is often there at the same time is the ego voice. So sometimes there are two voices. Well, in my experience, you've got the compulsion, but my ego or, that inner dialogue that says to me, what? You go out freezing? That's ridiculous. And you try and ignore the Kundalini,
Yes.
So sometimes that does come. You have this inner dialogue, a sort of a conflict between following what the compulsion tells you, to do.
That's
it's
very
not
true.
I mean, every time something happens, like you get a compulsion to go outside, it's not something you'll automatically do all the time. It's not. I mean, it wouldn't have been for me. I might have to stop and it's like Brooke wrote there on the group during the week, or it might have been an older post about, when it's a compulsion, when it's the Kundalini, and you get that opposite thing that says, no way, to do the reversal, that crucible of reversal, and you do the opposite because the compulsion must be done,
Right.
And you don't give that dialogue an opportunity. But I just wanted to say sometimes there is a dialogue there. So there are kind of maybe two voices in my head anyway.
Yeah, it's weird for me when I was, when I'd be compelled to go, naked into a snowstorm or a blizzard. My only concern, my concern wasn't to not do it. My concern wasn't about the cold or the freezing. My concern was to not be seen.
Yeah, but that could have been enough to stop you, is what I mean. You have to go beyond that then.
Right.
Or make it, set it that you won't be seen, so you choose the time of day or whatever.
Right, I'd go out in the middle of the blizzard at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
In whiteout conditions. I was always, clear to make that a whiteout condition, and so nobody would see. And it was so nice. Yeah. It was so nice to go out and do that. But now this also comes right back to the whole taboo and the fear, and as you reach, you say your life is swirling around and it feels like you and your kids and whatever that have been left are trying to find any kind of footing that can help to maintain some sort of a balance. You're going to need to initiate a radical surrender and a radical obedience, supported by radical action, and even initiated by radical action. And so, as you get into these areas, this is where that other voice that you're talking about, Santara, really comes out loud. The ego is going to say, "Well, I'm not going to do that." Are you kidding me? Yeah. No way. I mean, you got to be kidding. You're nuts. You're abnormal. I am not going to do that. And that voice can be so loud and so dogmatic in its approach to any kind of a radical change. And this is what a lot of people will encounter as they're reaching towards stability through a Kundalini equation, and the need for food on the table, the need for the rent to be paid, the electricity to be paid, the car to be fixed, gasoline for the car, these types of things, and there is, the budget is so small that You just have to start picking priorities. The priority is going to be the food and the heat. If you live in a really cold area. And so, yeah, this is where, the rubber meets the road for many people that are going through this. And I know people going through this right now. And you'll forgive me, I have a cold here, a little bit of a cold, so you'll hear me sniffling. But this is where the radical change is so important. This is where the radical actions to support that radical change is so important. And you cannot buy in to the fears and the disturbing visuals and thought patterns and taboos that society runs itself by. Society, if you, in the society you may be living in, well, hey, you just get onto welfare, or, you get on the government dole, and you just, you start accepting, there's food there's food stamps here in the United States, and you just kind of work that route. Well, a Kundalini person may not always be allowed to go that route. Mm-hmm. The whole reason they're in that position is to begin to initiate radical change through radical action. And some of those radical changes and radical actions will be in the form of total submission, total obedience to the Kundalini that is coming through. And this carries right on down to the children as well, and the pets, and the yard, the plants, and everybody. Everybody that's part of that life equation. Radical change needs to be supported by radical action. Radical action needs to be supported by radical obedience to the Kundalini and to the situation that the Kundalini is giving a person recourse to. So let's just say that, the person understands, okay, all right, I need some radical change in my life. Got to feed the kids, got to pay the rent, got to feed the dog, water the grass. Okay, I got to do radical change here. So, all right, I got this radical change. Okay, I'm going to put that out to the Kundalini. Radical change, radical change, radical change. And the Kundalini comes back and gives the person a waking vision of themselves slithering across icy snow to give homage to an old beat-up car, a junk car on the side of the road. And the person's going, you want me to slither my stomach across the ice and the snow to give worship to an old junk car? Are you serious? And this is where the radical obedience needs to take place. For all they know, as that person is standing there considering whether or not they should just start taking Prozac, for all they know, they will find money on the ground or in that junk car, just that the Kundalini knows about and is guiding them towards. They may find money, they may find some sort of a thing, but the idea is to trust the scenario and not trust your ego fears and warnings about it. You've got to trust the Kunalini, which means that you've got to step far beyond your normal ways of self-communication, far beyond that second voice that Amelia Satara brought up a little while ago. You've got to step far beyond it and go into the radical mystery of what the Kundalini is offering you. And even if she doesn't give you that vision, she may give you to a strange type of a teaching that will really force you to step over the taboos and the fears and the societally programmed judgments that are blocking you currently from receiving the abundance that you are indeed, that's available to you from the Kundalini. And much of it, much of the blockages in the West, at least, not so much in India, but in the West, people have a blockage towards surrender. They have a blockage to devotion. They have a blockage to giving themselves to a conduit of Kundalini, whether it's living or inanimate. Have you found this to be true, Santara?
Yes, Chrism. I was just thinking there, when you're talking about taboos, that's really a judgment that society makes, isn't it? I mean, a taboo, I'm just thinking about taboos. Like, when I went to Brazil, that was actually a taboo because I was a married woman. Having a teacher is a taboo, it's a judgment, because I would have spent some weeks with my teacher every year. And then other things like, it's a judgment of us, So
yeah.
Swimming in fresh water naked, all of those things are, they're all judgments, and it can be very hard. But also there are radical changes that aren't as dramatic as that one. Like, I know for me, I had to get up for a while in my process at 5 a.m. every morning when my children were small in order to do my practice before I got them ready for school. Now, that was a huge radical change for me who loves my bed. And another radical change was, giving up alcohol. I mean, that is a society taboo, a cultural taboo.
Right.
Honesty, isn't that another one in a way? I mean, what you were saying about, say, being on welfare or that, you might get a compulsion from the Kundalini that that's not okay anymore. And that there are aspects of that mightn't have been honest enough for the Kundalini within that context. And these can be huge radical changes in our lives. But they're not that noticeable. They're not as dramatic as what I'm saying to you as going to, you will say, Peru or swimming naked, that kind of thing.
Right. And these taboos we have to reach beyond. And a lot of these are self-imposed taboos too. Let's just say that you've actuated the Kundalini within you through a certain kind of a practice, to Kundalini yoga or whatever. And you have, the current of the goddess coming through you, and she's dissolving your life, and yet you're still clinging to Yogi Bhajan's instruction, who didn't have the Kundalini, by the way. And say, well, you got to do this asana and that asana, do some bhakti yoga, and it's like, it's like they're putting a big mishmash of different asanas and activities and devotions and things of that nature into a big bowl and saying, okay, this should work, drink it down. It doesn't work. And you need to often, I should say, in the Kundalini, I don't want to be absolutist. Sometimes it does work because it's the Kundalini that's been telling the person to do a different asana or a group of asanas. But often, the whole purpose of being challenged in such a way is to get you out of the dogmatic controls, to get you out of the expectations that X plus Y equals Z, to take you beyond the egocentric expectations and ideologies that are so perpetuated within society, so much so that you've adopted them as a fact. And the Kundalini's going, no, my son, no, my daughter, not a fact for you anymore. Now you've got to move beyond that. Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just, sorry, I forget how sensitive the microphone is. I was just agreeing. I think, Chrism, sometimes the difference between East and West is that the East, a lot of times in the East, there are a lot of, is dogmatic the right word, but their religious, we'll say, culture or their religious taboos, they can be quite hard for a Kundalini person living in the East. In some respects, I think it's easier, that aspect, in the West. Maybe.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, granted, in the West here, we're not being burned alive because our dowry doesn't come up to the expectation. But, we're, in some ways, we are being burned alive by, radiation therapies and things of that nature. So,
yeah, no, I'm... I'm speaking more, though...
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm speaking more, though, about the conditioning, the things that we grew up with. So, a lot of people in the West haven't heard of Kundalini, whereas we'll say in the East they have. And they already have an awful lot of beliefs and things that are very difficult for them to break away from, is what I mean. Whereas maybe in the West, that isn't quite the same.
Well, no, in the West, we do have that. I mean, let's just look at Catholicism.
I hear you, but I hear you, but still, it's easier.
We've got some pretty interesting religious systems here in the West as well, and they're so full of dogma, so full of a harsh dogma that's loosely based on the Bible, but can be based on other things too. In the East, in India, because there's like 1.2 billion people in India, or some sort of a number like that, and they just got us by the numbers. I mean, so many people are Hindu in India, and then you have like one or two of the states where they're what's the word? What's the Kunalini yoga sect? I forget what that's called. Atlanta Secret, you know that name there?
Starts with S, doesn't it?
The Sikhs, yes, the Sikhs, and the Sikhs. And both belief systems are very, very dogmatic in how they should live and how they should eat, how they should dress. Some wear turbans, some wear saris, and this type of a scenario. And yes, even Gopi Krishna had a hard time navigating some of the extreme dogmas that were represented in the 1930s in India at that time. And even now, so, a Kundalini person now in India would have some, I think it'd be a bit easier because of the internet and the technological explosion that's happened in India. But even so, even in you go into Europe, you go into places like, say, what was it? Some of the new nations since the Soviet bloc pulled back, they can be very strict and dogmatic in their governmental systems of what is allowed, what isn't. Britain itself is so very controlled and dogmatic in the issuance and the obedience to the laws of the land there. Just like here in the United States. And so, yeah, it's difficult all the way around, I think, with regards to these taboos and these laws and these compulsions. But you have to deal with it. And so the real answer to these questions really is to give total, radical obedience to your process. And for 69175, for this individual to begin to recognize their process as a living divine consciousness, one that you can communicate with, but it may not answer you in the ways that you're used to being answered. It may not answer you in English. And if it does answer you in English, you need to ignore everything that it says because it's not the process. It's an entity. It will answer you in symbols and in visions and in downloads of wisdom and in sensations upon the heart chakra, the emotional body. It will answer you in these ways that allow you to understand concepts, these blocks of concepts, rather than the concepts that that words produce for you. And I just want everybody to know that Lasha is with us now, and you may hear her purring. Come here, sweetheart. Come right over there. There you go. Yeah. So, anything you'd like to add to that, Santara?
No, Chrism, no, nothing to that really. I mean, I agree. You have to, the way the Kundalini communicates in all those ways. Feeling, the heart chakra, yeah, symbols, downloads. Definitely
and
not
what about
English words.
The obedience to the to the Kundalini and the radical levels of having to go above and beyond, or even below and beyond what your society feels is acceptable behavior. What about that?
Well, when you do that, when I don't, like, it always feels right, always, and the Kundalini responds to that. Okay, not maybe at the minute I begin doing it, because she allows me the discomfort, to go into that place of, there's like, sometimes to me, if it's a new thing, like, again, I'm going to take what was given an example. Let's just say going out in frosty grass, that compulsion. Let's say that, because I'd be familiar with that. So you go out. Now, when I would start doing that for the first time, the Kundalini mightn't give me anything to begin with, because it allows me, or she allows me, to feel that what's the word? Hesitancy within myself, and to work through it. So I mean, I can put that feeling into a lot of the things. Now, sometimes instantly, I will get, I will get a huge, communication from the Kundalini in my heart chakra. But typically, after a short while, as I definitely proceed into it, and if there's discomfort from my ego, it begins to feel really good. I begin to know that this is the right thing to do.
Well, let me give you an example of something that would be considered very, very anti-appropriate behavior in the United States. Would be a chode. A chode is a CHO with kind of like an umlaut over the O and then a D, and it's a Tibetan practice of separating oneself from demonic structures within them or around them, and basically one ties themselves unclothed. One ties themselves to stakes hammered into the ground or to tree trunks, and offers oneself to be consumed by the demons. And through that consummation, as the soul remains pure, that person is therefore purified of any kind of demonic control. And what would your opinion be of that type of a behavior, Santara?
Can you just explain a little bit maybe further about what do you mean offers themselves to be consumed by demons?
Offers themselves to be consumed by now these are the Tibetans. This would not be the way I would do it myself. But yeah, they're tied up out onto a plateau or over a rock, and they scream and yell at the demons to come and consume them. And by offering the invitation to the demons are no longer interested. It's no longer a challenge. It's no longer fun. this person is asking for. And it's just like, I need to go to someone who's a lot more fearful than this person who's staking themselves out on a rock and is asking for me to come. Well, that's just, no, absolutely not. You know, so there you go. Gone.
Well, okay, so they're being fearless, and they're being fearless in the context of, in our case, it would be the Kundalini. Yeah, I mean, that would be very much, obviously, against what would be in my society or American society, but I could see how that would be so beneficial if that was given for me to do it in the context of the Kundalini. Yeah, absolutely. Hard to do. Because, you know, I mean, again, you'd have to go, well, where will I go? How can I do, you know, you have to set it up. How will I not be seen, you know? And then what if somebody comes across me?
And how would you tie both hands to a separate tree trunk?
Well, I could reveal that.
I want to say, Chajashri Kundalini writes to you, Santara. She says, thank you, Santara, for your explanation. There you have it, my dear.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah. So I mean, you could ask somebody, of course, to do it and then to leave you. I mean, if there was somebody that you could trust, or if you had a teacher, or if you had a partner, say in my case, or depending, you know, and in that way you would be totally at the mercy. You mean there would be no way to release yourself.
There'd be no escape, right? They could get lost in a football game, and you're out there in the middle of wherever. You know, and screaming at the top of your lungs in the middle of the night during a storm, and they're kind of going, go.
Well, you don't have. You've told them not to come back till morning, you see, or whatever. And it means as well, you know, those little ants that come underneath you, or the snake or the spider.
They go into all those special areas.
Yeah, they do.
Like your eyes and your nose and your ears. Yeah. So, you know, there's all of that, as well as, we'll say, the actual offering yourself in the case you were talking about to the demons. You've got the physical world as well that you have to deal with, you know, the environment there and fears that might come up for a person. I mean, in one thing that you're given, I have found anyway, in one thing that I get to do, that the Kundalini, you know, I get an instruction from the Kundalini, which then becomes a compulsion. There's always more than one thing, you know, it's multi-layered. It's never just the one simple thing. There's a lot comes with it. So in that case, there would be physical fears would come and all sorts of other things, you know. Right.
Quite amazing.
I used to put you into some fairly strong situations with regards to storms and whatnot down in Cary, right? When you had a forest down there.
Yeah, absolutely you did. And for people listening that maybe don't understand this, I get compulsions from my Kundalini, but my Kundalini has also given me a physical teacher, which means that instruction comes through my teacher on behalf of the Kundalini. Sometimes when we get compulsions on our own, it's possible to, I'm going to say instruction first of all. Sometimes when we get instruction from the Kundalini within us, we can sort of avoid it, with sometimes maybe not even realizing we're consciously that we're doing that. But when you've got a teacher, it's far more difficult, because you have a physical voice and you've got that presence of the Kundalini in a way that you really can't escape from. So when I would have been given instructions from my teacher Chrism to do some of these, you know, taboos, that was as sacred to me as the instruction that would have come from my Kundalini inside of me. This is really, you know, the same thing. And so, yeah, I got some really, you know, extreme, radical instruction from Chrism. And I obeyed that as well.
And these would have been socially unacceptable as well, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And how would you deal with that within your Kundalini equation and the ego second voice that may come up?
Well, panic would be one way of absolute panic. Of course, because
what's the last one? What's the last one I told you to do?
Oh my goodness, I'm no good at that. What was the last one you told me to do?
I'll just give you a hint. You were down
the
on the
last one
beach.
was, yeah. I was what?
You were down on the beach.
What was I doing? I was. Actually, the last one you gave me was here. We were on the group, and I was telling you on the community here about going to Kerry, and you interrupted and you said, Amelia, the next time you go to Kerry, you are to go into the water, regardless of weather. And of course, going into the water means going into the water naked and completely submerging myself within the water.
Going into the ocean.
Yeah.
Yes.
The Atlantic.
With all the white sharks that collect off the coast of Ireland.
See, I have no fear on that, listeners. There are no sharks, but. But yeah, so when you said that to me, the significance of it might not have been recognized by people, but I said, of course, which really was, I obeyed. So we went down to Kerry 2 weeks ago. My husband had to attend a sad funeral there. But I knew that I was to go into the water, and I didn't into the ocean. And I didn't the first day because there was too much happening with the funeral and meeting family and all of that. But I was going to go on the Sunday. And not only that, I had a compulsion to do it. I had the instruction as well from within my own Kundalini. However, I was very aware of my ego, of that inner dialogue saying to me, you don't really have to do this, I mean, come on, Amelia, you've done this over and over again. Now, it's been a while, you see, so you've done this over and over again. The Kundalini, I mean, there was all this dialogue going on, which I could observe in a detached way, and yes, I was involved in it too, So I went to the beach, and there was a person walking. It took me 4 beaches before I could find the safety. And when I got to the 4th beach, there's a lot of beaches in Kerry, guys. When I got to the 4th beach, the tide was never so far out. Oh my God, it was one of these spring tides.
That just makes it even worse. God.
Yeah. It was terrible.
Because then you have to walk naked all the way out into the water, right?
Well, I didn't do that. No, I had a caftan on me until I get to the water.
I think we'll have to do it again then.
But, oh no, I've just given you an idea. No.
You have to wait for low tide.
Yeah, but seriously, I stood there and I thought, well, now, okay, it's okay. Because there was really, really strong winds. It was freezing cold. It was really ridiculous, you see? Can you hear? It was ridiculous. So I walked halfway there and I thought, no, I don't have to do this time. And I walked away again, and every step I took away, I was aware of, the Kundalini within me communicating to me that I was to turn around again. I wasn't trusting that I was to do this. So I turned around and I went down. And every step that I took then from that point where I was surrendering to your instruction and the Kundalini instruction, it felt better and better. And by the time I got to the water and I went in, I wasn't feeling the cold. I was saying my mantra on the way down. And it was a very beautiful experience. You know, it's incredible actually how cold it is here in Ireland at this time of year and how I didn't feel it. It's amazing to me.
Right,
Anyway.
right. And what I think is really, truly a gift to the people hearing this is that you took instruction from your flesh Kundalini teacher, and you fought against. You had that inner battle against the ego, saying you don't need to do this, and then the Kundalini saying you're going to want to do this, and you turned around and you felt the communication that I was talking with 69175 about earlier, and you know you literally were walking that explanation. You were going back and forth, and finally you decided to follow the Kundalini instruction or the teacher's instruction, and you went down there and you started feeling better with every footstep. You got closer and closer and closer to the water, right?
Yeah. Yes, Chrism. Yes. Yes.
This is what I'm talking about. Radical action. Radical action. And you exemplified it. And I want to publicly commend you for that recognition, Santara.
Thank you, Chrism. And there were other things that came from that then. There were, you know, when you surrender and when you obey, other things are grace to me. There were other things that came for me. I got insight. There was a lot of things happened, Chrism.
Did you get seaweed? Seaweed in the hair?
But anyway, yeah. It was amazing. Yeah.
Nicely done.
Okay.
I want to say nicely done to you. So, have you been able to pick out any questions? But before we start that, I want to really summarize this conversation a bit with regards to looking for radical results to help you find balance within your Kundalini awakening equation. You must initiate radical action. And you must have radical trust and radical obedience to your process or the equation that the Kundalini has set you up with. So, for instance, Amelia has the equation of her own Kundalini as bringing her to that of a teacher. And if you have that, then you must obey that teacher with the same diligence that you would obey the Kundalini. And if you don't have that, then you obey the Kundalini with the same diligence that you'd obey divinity, or God. You must do these things in order to receive the radical changes in your equation that you are looking for balance within. That's what I want you to walk away from this conversation with. Radical changes supported by radical actions, supported by radical trust, supported by radical obedience to the Kundalini. And have you collected some questions for this next part of our conversation, Santara?
I have, Chrism. I just would like to add as well that in the context we were speaking earlier about relationships, so my husband, John, knows of this as well, and so do my family. So at this stage, they are all very supportive of, instruction from my Kundalini or instruction from my teacher. And that is part of the respect that I was talking about earlier as well, that it's not questioned or ridiculed or mocked or anything like that. It is respected and honoured from their perspective,
Hold on a minute there. Hold on a minute. I know that when I give you an instruction to go out in the middle of the storm and to meditate in the middle of a forest, your husband might be going, boy, I don't want him as my teacher.
Exactly. That'll never happen.
You know, I remember I gave you an instruction one time early on to go early in the morning and to find the deepest, coldest spring of fresh water and totally immerse yourself in it for a number of minutes. And 21 minutes. And because it's so cold and so deep, I asked John, or I had you ask John, to kind of lifeguard you over there. Remember that?
I do indeed.
Did he have a bit of an incredulous expression as he watched you get in that water?
Oh, he absolutely had, and we had sleet falling at the time. And yeah, absolutely he had. But again, he watched for the 21 minutes and would say, "You're going to get hypothermia, Amelia. You know, you really are." Every so often. But I didn't. John is a former policeman in the Irish Garda, you know, the police force. So he would know. Yeah. He would know. So, but it's interesting too, just, you know, so yeah, I mean, 21 minutes in freezing cold water, yeah, hypothermia. I mean, I'm not talking, you know, freezing in the sense of, you know, just as a sort of a general, I mean, really literally freezing cold water. And those, you know, in ways, the Kundalini in the context of a relationship will demonstrate to the partner who isn't going through the process of its presence as well through things like this, because I didn't get hypothermia. I had no difficulty whatsoever for the 21 minutes once I was in and I would say my mantra. No difficulty. So that's a demonstration, isn't it, of the Kundalini and the Kundalini's presence to the partner.
Right, exactly.
And she does that. Yeah.
And she does that. Now, before we get to the questions, I'm going to come on over here to Rosemary, and I believe she has some announcements she wants to make. So here we are. Hello, Rosemary.
Hello, Chrism. Thank you. And
You're welcome.
That's amazing what you were just teaching. It's amazing. And you could see, no, I've not done those, followed or been given those commands, but I could see how it would be.
Well, let's look at some of the commands you've been given. You've been given to go in icy cold water near Mount Shasta. You remember that?
Yes, I was thinking of that. That's true, yes.
And you've been given to fly down to Peru and drink a very special jungle juice called ayahuasca at almost 10,000 feet elevation. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
So you've had some tests.
Also here in town that's very cold, in compassion for those who live in the cold, the homeless.
Right.
I mean,
right.
I did some things
You're
there.
a great one for service. Yeah. So you have done. You are no novice at this work.
Well, even though, and many people know I was a nun for 25 years. There's a vow of obedience that you take, and it's more to the structure of the life. I don't remember ever hearing, "I command you under obedience to do something." I mean, you got your assignments, and it was just lived. But and learn that early, but it's really essential, very essential to any life. I guess that's what I want to say.
For the ego, for the ego training, you know. It sounds to me like within the order that you were in with the nuns and as you were Mother Superior of those nuns, that there was not a great level of focus on the commands or, you know, really pushing the ego towards levels of refinement, you know, by forcing commands upon them. And whereas with the Kundalini, we're not dealing with people that are making, often, not always are people making a choice to have the Kundalini. The Kundalini is making a choice to have that individual. And and that individual, and sorry, Sitara, you're back online here. And that individual is compelled to demonstrate certain levels of obedience that they would not have preferred to demonstrate before. And this is where the command structure and the observation of obedience is really given a greater level of focus.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that kind of, my even attending a seminar, for example, I had heard the word once, and I saw an article in the Edge magazine that you'd written about service, and I said, oh, yeah. And then the ad that Eileen had put in about the film. And I did that, and I just was blind about it in the sense, but not, I didn't know then, I remember had to change something in my schedule those days to be there. And then later, 2 years later, really getting the profound impact of this Kundalini on our lives and those divine gifts that are meant that we are then expressing the Creator here in this world, got the Creator's world. And I remember asking you, would you come back? I said, we're not doing too well here. Would you come back and do another seminar? And all of that and that process and however that went, was obedience. I didn't know what to do there. I've done something similar to that, but it was already with the people that were experienced and blah, 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 So
right.
all along it is in little ways. It, too, is in the practice. And yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm sorry, the announcement, I'm sorry. October 28th and 29th here in the Twin Cities this will be the fifth seminar that Chrism is doing out of that initial come back to Minnesota. And we, Joey and Katie and I will be around with people again, sharing some YouTubes in this case with people that have interest. And also, we have several expos. We have one coming up in the 1st of April. That's the next one. It's a smaller one than we were in last weekend, but we'll be there, and that will be in Mankato also. And the seminar will be in Mankato, again, October 28th and 29th. And my email address is rosemaryg@usinternet.com. Open always to questions or comments or anything about the seminar that we know. We don't have the details, but we know the structure and the parameters of it. So thank you, Chrism. Thank you.
And thank you. Thank you very much, Rosemary. Thank you.
Yeah, and I have one more thank you to say. I did mention last time about you've been available to us to talk to people when we're at these expos, and we did the third one this time, and Chrism, it was powerful. It's powerful. Me and I think Joey and Katie too, to observe you talking with people, and huge difference. You could just see it on them. And in this room that had maybe 15 or so, 18 maybe of us, quote, called vendors, the room the energy in the room shifted through your conversation with people. And people weren't listening to the conversations further down, but the energy shifted in the room, and you could see it even on people's faces, and I know they were very touched. So that's really a wonderful experience.
Yeah, and all kudos to the Kundalini for that. That's an action of grace. Action of grace. Well, thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Rosemary, and thank you, Joey and Katie, and everybody who was there at the Mankato Expo. Thank you, everyone, for putting that together on behalf of Kundalini.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, and thank you. And Santara, here we are. Do you have announcements, or do you have some questions you'd like to put forward? Santara, hello. Uh-oh. You may be having a technical glitch. Hello, Amelia, Santara.
Yes.
Okay, we can hear you now, I think. No. Okay, it just shows that Santara's call has been dropped. And so, well, I just want to continue really along the lines of that. Radical change requires you to be embracing a radical surrender in a way. I guess, let's look at it from that vantage point. Surrendering to radical action and trusting that surrender and really, really enabling yourself to come through some of these difficulties that people have when the Kundalini begins to tear apart the family structure, to tear apart the relationship structure in whatever way, shape, or form she does. And she does it in a lot of different ways. So look at that, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. And I'm going to tap dance here for a little bit while Amelia tries to get back on. She likes to collect these questions. So let's see. Here you are. Amelia, are you there? It shows that she's there, but I don't think her microphone's working. So let me put her in the blue and then put her back in the red. Hello. Hello.
Hi, Chrism. Hello.
Okay, I can hear you now. Maybe you should back off of that mic a little bit.
Oh, I don't know. That's weird, isn't it?
Okay, all right. Well, let's get to the questions before things get strange again.
Okay, but I did want to say that Rosemary reminded me how service can be a radical change within the Kundalini context
very true,
as well.
Very true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You got that right. Selfless service for others is a huge, huge radical move that not many people partake of. Even Kundalini awakened people, activated or awakened people, it's not as common as I would like to see that they reach out into the populations or the environment and lend a helping hand without asking to be paid for it or to have the favor returned in some way. Selfless service can be extremely beneficial to people that are undergoing some of the difficulties within the Kundalini awakening experience. Thank you. Thank you, Rosemary.
Yeah,
Thank you, Santara.
Yeah, and that's one of the benefits too of having a teacher, because you would have shown me this and I would have come to experience it, that when selfless service really trains our ego really and demonstrates to it, I think, that it's not the important one, and so giving service throughout our process, and forcing ourselves to do it sometimes when we're feeling extremely insular, that can be an amazing demonstration to the ego. It's just so helpful, again, Chrism, on so many ways for the process. So yeah, I'm realizing the time is passing, isn't it? I'm going over now for the questions.
Okay.
I'll begin, Chrism. Okay. The first question was sent to me, and it says, after having Shaktipat from Master Chrism, and following instructions, I slept as usual. I had a dream, and this is it. I went to the grocery shop. There was a lady in red attire standing. She gave me half of a custard fruit, which is called
Uh-oh. Come back to us, Santara. Oh, geez. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if she got dropped or what, but I'm going to see if I can get her back. Wow. So the lady that that the person saw dressed in red would be the Shakti Kundalini. And the offering of a fruit, whatever it may be, would be a gift of grace from the Kundalini, a gift of living food, a gift of energy. And this is the Kundalini telling her that the Shakti pot has been received. There you are. I hear you, Centaur. Go ahead.
Oh, you can hear me again?
Yep.
Okay, this is strange. Okay.
Just get
Will
it out.
I move on?
Yeah. No,
Okay,
say
so the
what
next,
the dream
okay.
was. Say what the dream was.
Well, that was the dream. Basically, they paid 100
okay.
rupees.
Yeah, so, did Shakti give her money as well?
Oh, no, after searching the wallet, which was also red in color, I paid her 100 rupees. What does this all signify?
Wait. Handed her a wallet. Okay. So that, once again, that's the same translation, that the Shakti has given this person the forces that can help a person buy food or buy survival or survive in the social environment in some way, and has given her that gift. And that gift is also as a symbol of the Shakti pot that the Sacred Mother is giving to people. And the fact that the wallet is red means that it's coming directly from the Shakti, who is also dressed in red, and whose color, is matching that of the first chakra, which I'll be Shakti potting the third chakra tonight. But yeah, this is very, very, very positive. This is a very, very positive result from a Shakti pot for a person to have that kind of a dream. It means that the gift has been given and will be continuously given. Go ahead, Amelia, if you're still there, which she doesn't seem to still be there. Oh, you gotta love BlogTalk. I don't know if it's BlogTalk this time. I think it might be her microphone. Yeah, she says it's not. Well, in lieu of the technical difficulties, I think I'm going to go ahead and terminate the program. She's putting herself in the blue and the red and the blue and the red, and I don't know that that's going to help at all.
I'm going to try this. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, let's try this. I think you're right. I've taken out my earphones.
Okay, all right. Let's go ahead and give it a shot.
So let's give it a shot. Okay, so the next question, Chrism, came from a Kundalini person who asked, could I ask you this if I thought it was appropriate? So I'm going to ask you, and you can tell me if it is or not. Are there areas in which David Icke is mistaken? For example, the hollow moon. That is, how much of global warming is human-caused? Can Chrism identify any emerging disinformation agents in the public arena with regard to exposing the powers that be?
Oh God, that's fairly easy. Yeah, I mean, I can do that. I mean, there's just so much.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to organize it all. Most of the disinformation is coming from spiritual sources, corrupt spiritual sources. Right now in the United States, with the Trump presidency, people are learning what it is to have much less faith in their government, and a level of civil disrespect is being nurtured by the powers that be, with full knowledge of the manipulation of the masses that is taking place. We're having the racial issues and the gender issues and the issues of democracy being attacked by a foreign power, which doesn't seem to. There's no follow up. I mean, treason is not really being looked at seriously, and lots of things are being allowed to slip under the rug and the sight of the public. The most important thing to the public is the status quo that allows them to feed their kids and have worth to their monetary things and their health care, of course, which is also coming under attack. And so, yeah, there's a great shift that is occurring within the United States with regards to the governmental policies and democracy in general. And this is being allowed to occur, and this is being fomented by billionaires. Money has bought the presidency in the United States, and the powers that be have allowed that to occur. And so fake news is basically news that is generated to initiate or elicit a specific response from different levels of the population. So fake news, the Trump administration is full of fake news. The Republicans are full of fake news. The Democrats are full of fake news. And so there's all kinds of fake news going around. You have to use your Kundalini to discern what is appropriate and what is not appropriate for you to respond to. And with regards to David Icke, a hollow moon theory, the moon is hollow. The earth is hollow. There are plenty of holes and hollows within the planetary bodies. Is it so hollow that there's another ocean, towards the center of the earth? No, but it's hollow enough that certain environments are formed and are appreciated by certain life forms. And as far as the moon goes, the moon is being used by other races with specific agenda. Same with the Martian surface too, but I wasn't asked about that. I forget. I mean, it's such a big scoping question. Cynthia, are you still there?
That's a very good answer. Thank you, Chrism. Because you could talk about it endlessly, I think.
Yeah.
I have another question that has just come in from somebody who's listening on the group, and it says, "Will you please ask if it's typical to have absolutely no appetite while going through this awakening, please? Top-down activation. I have been eating very little just because I know I need. Yes, I haven't felt hungry in a week."
That's okay. That's all right. But keep yourself hydrated. Use some of that high pH water, and make sure that your electrolytes are staying, healthy. If it lasts more than 2 weeks, then I want you to start pushing food upon yourself. Over.
What's that last, Chrism? If it lasts 2 weeks.
If it lasts more than 2 weeks, I want you to start eating no matter what.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Chrism. The next questions are from the group now. I've taken them from the group. Noticing that I seem to be manifesting the things that I'm thinking about the most. Is this normal? And how do we stick to positive thoughts?
Huh. What was that again? Can you rephrase that question maybe for me?
Well, noticing that I seem to be manifesting the things that I'm thinking about the most, and is this normal in a Kundalini context?
Oh,
and how do we stick to positive thoughts?
Right. Selfless service to others is a great way to keep your thoughts very, very positive. And being very, very manifesting at the moment means you're in the groove and you really want to go for this, and you're being given a great opportunity to do some really good works upon this world. So I really encourage a person who is manifesting that way to manifest in that direction. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. When I woke up and very late in the evening, I feel some energetic movement in my back. It feels like electric ants moving on my back, and I get very itchy afterwards in the spine area. Is this Kundalini related?
Yeah, that can definitely be Kundalini related. Electric ants are one of the symptoms of Kundalini, as well are subtle shocks or having each individual hair follicle stand up and move in a certain direction upon the body, as if governed by an energetic force. These are all Kundalini-related symptoms. So good on you, and start practicing the safety protocols as soon as you can. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. When I lay down and close my eyes, my body instantly starts to feel like it's floating and turning in different directions. This has been going on since I was little. I feel like it's turning into circles and other directions. Anyone else? Well, can you speak of that?
Energy manifestations behind closed eyes are fairly common. The phosphenes behind the eyes will form different shapes, different clouds, different colors that correspond with the level of conscious evolution that the person has. So yeah, that is common. It's not strictly a Kundalini condition, though. This is people that don't have the Kundalini are having these types of phenomena as well. Over.
Okay, thank you. Chrism, during the week you posted a photograph of a rash, and you said it was an excellent example of a Kundalini-induced skin rash that can appear anywhere in the body and goes away quickly. Would you just speak for a moment or two about that, please, that phenomena?
Yeah, the skin rash comes and goes. It typically lasts about 3 days, although it can last longer. I'm not putting, very specific time parameters on it. It will be itchy. It'll be maybe about 1 centimeter across the individual raised area of the skin. It'll be red. It's very reminiscent of a heat rash, where even though heat is not present, it can be given by somebody being in close proximity to me, for instance. They can get a heat rash or a Kundalini rash, and don't scratch it. There's no need to scratch it. Make sure you're hydrated with water. Make sure that you're in a position. You can take a bath. Taking a bath can be helpful with that, and it can take some of the itch away. You can put some colloidal, or what do they call that when they put oatmeal in it? You can have some of that. That can help, or you can just put some baking soda in the water as well, and that can also help. Kind of forms kind of like a slime on the skin, and that's it's healthy for the skin. It's not detrimental, but it is definitive proof, especially if it leaves quickly, that you have the Kundalini and the Kundalini has you. And if you had any doubts before that rash came along, well, have no doubts any further. Over.
I love that expression. That, you have the Kundalini, but the Kundalini has you. That is wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
true.
The next question is: can you stop the Kundalini with your mind consciousness, or can it go beyond, out of your control?
It goes way out of your control. That is one of the hallmarks of the Kundalini, is that just as that statement we just were talking about, you have the Kundalini, but in truth, it's the Kundalini that has you. It is in control of itself upon and within you, and you are there to obey, to be in communication, and it's not as bad as that sounds. But you are there to learn from divinity, to do what divinity is suggesting that you do, to be that kind person, to be that compassionate person, to be that person that has great levels of self-discipline and respect, and all the different qualities that we list in the safety: the kindness, the forgiveness, the tolerance, the trust, the honesty, the selfless service. literally having Kundalini is to be put into a school for saints. And I want to welcome all the saints that are listening to this program right now. Welcome, everyone. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. A question has come in again from somebody listening on the group to the show. And it says, hello, why are spiders symbols of Kundalini? Thank you.
Why are spiders symbols of Kundalini? Why is the sky blue? Spiders are symbols of Kundalini because that is what the goddess Kundalini selected the spider as a manifestation and symbol of grace. Much the same way that the Kundalini also selected the serpents to be a symbol and manifestation of grace, more so than, say, the rabbit. Kundalini didn't necessarily choose the rabbit to be a sign or a symbol of the Kundalini. Nothing against rabbits. Love the rabbits, love the bunnies. But they are not selected in that context to be a sign and a symbol of grace. Typically, the Kundalini is choosing the top of the pyramid predator species. The tiger, the lion, the serpent, the wasp, the spider, the orca, these types of the eagle, these types of animals are typically what the Kundalini chooses to appear in because they're at the top of the pyramid. If you understand what I mean by pyramid, you'll have the grass, and the insects eat the grass, and the bird eats the insect, and another animal eats the bird, and another animal eats the animal that ate the bird, and so on and so forth. And these animals are getting bigger, and pretty soon, a greater predator comes along and eats that animal, and so on and so forth, until it reaches the end of the line where no animal is eating the predator that has eaten the life force of all the preceding animals. That's the Kundalini. That's why the tiger is at the top of the pyramid. That's why the orca is at the top of the pyramid. That's why the praying mantis and the wasp and the spider are all top of their phylums as predatorial species. This is why the Kundalini chooses these predator species to represent herself, because these predator species are literally bastions of the life force that have preceded it. The plant forces within them, the insect forces within them, the bird forces are within them, the mammalian forces are within them. The tiger is the end collection point for the force of life and prana that all the previous animals that have eaten of each other bring to the equation within the tiger, or the wasp, or the orca, or the snake, or the spider. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. And another one that has come in just now from the group. When working on chakras, how do I know when one chakra is fully opened and I'm ready to move on to the next? In particular, the lower chakras. Thank you.
And you shouldn't be working on the chakras at all. The chakras know exactly what to do. Are you working on your brain? Are you working on the prefrontal lobe complex within the brain? Are you doing that? Are you looking at the spinal cord within the second and third thoracic vertebrae on your back? Are you looking at that? Are you working on the strands, making sure the strands are in proper alignment or receiving the energy that they need? You don't need to work on the chakras. The chakras know how to work on themselves. The only force that really should work on the chakra is the Kundalini, or the divine. Okay? It's very important for people not to go diddling around in their energetic anatomy. Now, during the Shakti pod, I have people do something called chakra breathing, which is basically putting a lot of energy into the chakra. But at the very same time they're doing that, Kundalini is going into those chakras. So I would suggest that people leave their chakras alone and practice their forgiveness, practice their tolerance, practice their anger management, practice the levels of ego control that can really, that in and of itself can lend itself to chakra health and balance. As you balance the forces of consciousness within you, the chakras themselves will flow with a greater level of balance as you do that. And I see Atlanta Seeker has said, wow, I was just thinking about predators because my friend sent me an amazing story about Romeo the wolf in Alaska who befriended an entire town, people and dogs. Well worth watching the lecture on Romeo. And so that's the Romeo the wolf on YouTube. And so if you want to look that up on YouTube, there you have it. Over.
Okay, thank you, Chrism. Can Chrism elaborate on what he said I should be working on when he said to make sure it's aligning properly? That's the person now who asked you about the chakras. I'm not following.
Okay, all right. Can you ask the question again?
Can Chrism elaborate on what he said I should be working on when he said to make sure it's aligning properly?
I was talking about the strands between the third and fourth thoracic vertebra. I was basically making a comment on a person micromanaging their body. And because, we know about chakras, well, then, we're saying, well, okay, I'm working on my chakra here. I'm asking, well, if you're working on your chakra, how come you're not working on the strands of your spinal cord that may be out of alignment? Okay, I'm just, I'm saying, unless you're going to work on the body as a whole, complete unit, don't think that your ego mind can mess around with the chakras with any form of accuracy. Do not work on the chakras. The chakras aren't dirty. They're not unbalanced. They're not needing your ego mind to correct their spin or the direction of their spin. The Kundalini does this. The Kundalini knows what the correct rate for each chakra is. Not your ego mind, not your spirit guides, not any entities that are posing as the Kundalini or as a high spiritual being. You don't need to turn your energetic anatomy over to anyone but the Kundalini, the force of grace within you. Yes.
So the person has said, I see, thank you. I thought they still needed to be cleared since I had a top-down activation, his lower ones.
No. You could stop.
So he understands.
You could stop using the drug that gave you the top-down manifestation, though. You can stop using that substance and take out all caffeine as well. Over.
Yes, I will, he says. Yes, I will.
Good for them. And thank you, sir or ma'am, for asking. That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking it.
Okay. Thank you,
Chrism. This is new, Amelia, to be able to speak to the group at the same time. How cool.
It seems to be working well, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Hello, everyone.
The next
Kundalini Awakening exclamation point. Hello, everyone there listening.
So, is it a coincidence, this was asked on the group, that a lot of people in my family, especially spiritually inclined ones, passed away in the last week?
Well, it's significant to them for sure. They're moving on to their next expression. In what context is the person using significance? I'm asking.
I'm hearing that. Is it a coincidence that especially spiritually inclined ones? He didn't say significant, or maybe I read that wrongly. He's saying.
Well, no. I think the question itself is kind of asked in a fairly confusing way. Is it significant to what? Is it significant that people of a spiritual leaning are passing away? Does it mean that if they have a spiritual leaning in your family that they're going to pass away? I mean, what significance are they talking about? So I'm not going to answer that.
Okay.
Huh? Yeah, let's move on.
Coincidence is the word, actually, I think.
What
that
is it?
They've all passed away.
Is it a coincidence?
Is it a coincidence? Yeah.
There's no such thing as coincidence. So there's probably a very, very special timeline that involves the spiritually minded people in your family that have allowed them to pass on to their next journey at the same time as each other. Maybe they're traveling all together through the different lifetimes. Doesn't have to be a scary type of thing that, oh my God, if I'm believing in spirituality, then I'm going to die. No, it's not that at all. Over.
Thank you, Chrism.
Yes, ma'am.
I am consciously able to invoke a surge of energy from the base of my skull down through my spine to the tips of my fingers, the tips of my toes. Feels like the chills people get sometimes when they're cold or almost orgasmic. Is that Kundalini?
No, that would be prana and chi mixed together. A definite precursor to Kundalini, though. The Kundalini doesn't typically lend itself to being controlled by the human ego. But prana and chi most certainly do, not being as strong a divine consciousness as the sacred male and sacred female combined become. And so yeah, the prana and the chi can give you some very, very orgasmic feelings and some very strong tingles. Matter of fact, there's some practitioners of a form called Margaluyu that can literally project the chi and ring a bell at a distance, sometimes a great distance, 40 yards or 40 meters as they use in Europe. And you can literally hear that bell ring with chi projected from the second chakra using the intestines as a coil. Anyway, over with that question.
Do you think people get confused? Not confused, but do you think people are saying they have Kundalini when it is prana? That they're not correct in.
Well, yeah, I think so. I think there's a great level of mystery around the symptoms of Kundalini, and you get a lot of talk about disinformation from a previous questioner. A lot of disinformation about Kundalini in the West and on the internet. People, I'm a Reiki master number 10, and I really know what everything's all about. And someone would come up to them and say, yeah, I've got some tingles in my hands and I'm getting some orgasmic feelings. Oh, you got the Kundalini. And they don't really know. They're just kind of like pulling it out of their hat, so to speak. And you'll get some guru guy with a beard like me, and they'll say, oh, yeah. They'll say, oh, yes, my son, you must have the Kundalini because I don't know what else to tell you, so I have to sound like I know what I'm talking about. And so, yes, we are going to say that you have the Kundalini. It's easy. It's easy to say it. It's not easy to truly know. That you have to experience, and that the grace has to give to you. And ladies and gentlemen, we're coming to the end of the show. We literally have about 60 seconds left. So, you have me there.
Can I give the websites very quickly because I haven't done it for a few weeks? If anybody would like to make a donation to support the work that Chrism does, please go to one of these two websites. The first one is chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com or www.kundalinisafeties.com. and all donations are gratefully received. If you're going to make a small donation, that will be, very much received with gratitude. Small donations are really important to support the work that's being done. So thank you guys, and see you next week at the same time.
Agreed. Thank you, everyone, for listening on the groups and here in the chat. And I'll end it like I started it.